a lovely night, day, wherever you are. If not, do understand and get your day, your night is going to get better. Honey, once your perception gets better. So earlier, you guys know I'm always recommending books, right? And earlier, I was on a bus and I was reading Psycho Cybernetics by Meg Mold. If you are a person who wants to change your self image, right? Your self image is to everything. It's tied to the relationships you get into. It's tied to your finances. It's tied to any performance that you are doing in your life. Is if it's business, it's tied to that. If it's schooling, it's tied to that. Okay. And once we start working on our self image and changing it, right, then you will see your income and everything go up. And let me tell you something, it works, okay? Because when I was becoming monetized on YouTube, this was one of the books that I kept on rereading. Okay, such a great book. So, one of the things it talks about over here is don't fight straw men out of the past. Okay, for example, and it gives examples of patients that Dr. Maxwell Maltz had. So, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, he was a surgeon, right, and he would work on people, whether they came to his office because they had um like a peculiar like scar or something on their face. Or one guy, his family had wanted Dr. Maxwell Maltz to speak to him because he had like really enlarged ears. And his ears, in a book, it says Dr. Maxwell Maltz said they weren't as large as the God imagination had him believing, right? And in this book, it talks a lot about imagination. And what Dr. Maxwell Maltz noticed was when he would do surgery on some people, he noticed like they self-image change. And with some people, he noticed that, he didn't even need to perform surgery. Some of them just needed, talking to, right? To get them to change their imagination, because instead of them using their imagination constructively, many times people use their imagination destructively, right? Imagining that they're not, beautiful, or imagining that they're very ugly, or imagining that they, whatever it is, whatever you have been programmed to believe since you was a child. Okay, hey, is it Shad? Peace here, baby, peace here. Riz God, peace here, baby, peace here, peace here. Whatever you have believed since you was a child, right? And so, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, he started working with these people, and he noticed that, not only do we have an outer self image, but we also have an inner self image. Okay. And so this is pretty much what it says. It says, don't fight straw men out of the past. For example, a patient of mine became jittery and anxious in business meetings, theaters, churches, or in any formal gathering. Groups of people were the common denominator. Without realizing it, he was attempting to react to some environment out of his past where groups of people were a significant factor. He remembered that when he was a child, see, everything ties back to childhood, right? So it says, um, he remembered that when he was a child. Now, listen to this, because maybe this will help someone out there, right? Like, a lot of times we do things, and sometimes we may be unaware why we tend to do some of the things that we do. Some memories, it can be buried like all the way into our subconscious mind that we don't even remember it until something dramatic tends to happen, and we like, oh my goodness, I remember that time when I was in first grade, right? It brings back memories. And so it says he remembered that when he was a child in elementary school, he had wet his pants. Okay. And a cruel school teacher had called him up in front of the class and humiliated him. That's crazy, right? And to just think, I remember hearing somebody say, um her children become her adults, right? Her children become her adults. And we tend to, especially like as children, when we in school or wherever it is, some authority figure, we feel like this person knows best, right? Because they're an authority figure, they much older. So, as a child, you like, oh, this person knows best. This person know more, right? And a lot of times, like what I heard this person say, they said her children become her adults. They're saying is so true, because if you don't deal with whatever you went through when you was a child, okay, you will grow up and be a hurt adult, okay, and inflicting your wounds on other people, or trying to poison other people, not literally poison them, but you know what I mean. Okay, so he reacted with feelings of humiliation and shame. Now, one factor in the situation groups of people was reacted to as if it were the entire past situation. When he was able to see that he was acting as if he were a 10-year-old schoolboy, as if every gathering were an elementary school class, and as if every group leader were a cruel school teacher, his anxiety disappeared. Other typical examples are the woman who responds to every man she meets as if he were some individual man out of her past. The man who reacts to every person in authority as if he were some individual authority out of his past. Home remedies for hemorrhoids. Witch hazel. You could do witch hazel for hemorrhoids. So getting back to this, right? I remember I used to have like a fear of people that were in authority, right? Like if I seen somebody that was like an authority figure, like a cop or something like that, my heart, like I would feel some type of way, right? And also, I don't know, like if I seen, and this happened when I was working at this security job, my last official job, like punching and clocking in for somebody. But I remember when I would see like guys that were like real tall. And it's crazy because I dated guys that was tall, but guys that was tall and like older, I had this I had this like this sort of little fear, right? And what I could tie that back towards was my childhood. So a lot of times we don't make the correlation of, oh, this is why I felt that way, right? Say for instance, if if you always, when you was a child and you was told you better not say nothing back, right? Like whatever the adult said, you just accepted. You better not talk back. You pretty much can't have an opinion or anything like that. You can't, I don't want to say argue your case or whatever, but you can't tell them that, oh no, this didn't happen because you was just like pretty much canceled out, right? Like you wasn't really listened to like that because the adults felt like what they said went, and that's it. Okay. And so, and even if you did say something big, you was told that you was being combative, you was told that you was being disrespectful, and oftentimes you probably got a whooping, okay? Like, especially if you was talking back, right? So you grow up and now you are an adult and you feel like when certain things come up, you feel like you don't want to be argumentative because the consequences that came with it when you was a child. So some of the things that you may do, you may try to disregard. You may try to not disregard, but you don't like confrontation. No confrontation. So what you do is pretty much you allow people to walk over you. You don't say nothing. You don't speak up for yourself because the confrontation, whenever you said something when you was a child, right? You was given a business pretty much. And now it's like you an adult and you're like, oh my goodness, I just want to avoid confrontation. I don't want to get into no argument. So you just pretty much go along to get along, right? And you may think like, oh, that I only do that one place. Hold up for a minute. Javon, stop. Hold up. Duty, hold up. Where's the remote? I do now. You may think like, oh, I only do this, in my relationship, but I can almost assure you what you do one place, you do all places. It may appear that you just do it in your relationship, your intimate relationship, but most likely you do that everywhere. Okay. Because if you're a pushover home, you're going to be a pushover when you go to that job. You're going to be a pushover pretty much everywhere. It's not like, oh, well, I'm only a pushover, here. No, you're going to be a pushover everywhere. And so it's not until we start making a correlation and we see like, oh, I do this because of this. And the only way you're going to be able to start putting two and two together is if you start observing yourself, if you start doing the work on yourself and start seeing that the way I have been showing up, it has been affecting everything. Because it don't only just affect your income. You may think like, oh, it just affect my income. I can almost assure you it don't. It affects your relationships, everything. Okay. So again, if I could recommend one book, okay, it would definitely be Psycho Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. When I tell you this is an amazing read, okay, this book is so good. I haven't even finished the whole book, but the parts that I did read, it was so good. Okay. It even talks about resentment. Okay. It creates an inferior self-image. Like you resenting people. All right. Resentment, even when based on real injustices and wrongs, is not the way to win. It soon becomes an emotional habit. Okay. Habitually feeling that you are a victim of injustice, you begin to picture yourself in a role of victimized person. You carry around an inner feeling that is looking for an external peg to hang itself on. It is then easy to see so-called evidence of injustice or fancy you have been wronged in the most innocent remark or neutral circumstance. Habitual resentment leads to self-pity. Okay, so isn't that crazy though? Like how we tend to do one thing and we like, is like you think I'm doing this one thing because I want to get back at this person or I want to hurt this person, and then or actuality, like you're not hurting anyone but yourself. That's crazy. Like you resenting other people, it turns into like you having a inferiority complex. I guess that's how you say it, right? Like it's so crazy. It's just fascinating. But anywho, another part of the book was good was Maxwell Maltz. He talked about try to do only one thing at a time. So many times we like, oh, I got to do all these things around the house. I got to do all these different things. And what we tend to do is keep the stuff bottled up in our mind, right? We don't write it on paper. And so it's like you feel like you got to do a whole bunch of things. But in all actuality, if you write the stuff down that you have to do and start tackling the things down one at a time, I can almost assure you. First of all, if you take the stuff that you got going on in your mind and put it on paper, I can almost assure you that it's going to be a relief. Okay, that's one. Two, after you write that stuff down on the paper, now it's visible. Now you can see. Now you know what to do. You go from the most important to the least important, okay? And you start tackling your list down. That way, you don't feel so overwhelmed. That way, you're not all over the place, okay? And once you start getting in the habit of doing these things, your life, it becomes much easier, right? It becomes easier as opposed to keeping stuff like bottled up in your mind. So with that being said, I love you guys. Keep rocking out, believing in yourselves. Until next time. Peace.
Wait.
What?
I want to say peace.
Let me say it.
Peace. Yeah.